And welcome to another edition of By the Numbers. I'm Pep Fernandez. That's Eric Paul Johnson. This is how you do it. Every Tuesday you pick up the Press Enterprise. You can follow along at home, but my EPJ takes up half the page. This is far too small for me. So I don't know what happened this week, Eric, but still a lot of good stats in here. Let's go back to last week's question. Roosevelt quarterback Joseph Muriel off to a great start this season. 5 touchdowns in a game. What's the record for touchdowns in a single game in the inland area?
Yeah, we've seen it happen 8 times throughout, or 3 times in our area with 8 touchdowns, and that would be Brandis Dew in 2004 accomplished that. Robert Fuller of San Bernardino did it in 2006, and then Martin Valdivia of Newview Bridge did it in a 2011 playoff game, helping Newview Bridge win their only playoff game in their history. So that right now is the benchmark, 8 touchdowns in a single game. And
if touchdowns were determined by how cool your name was, I think Brandis Dew would probably win that battle. All right, Brandon Scott. Now, I saw him against the opener against Chaffee, having a great game, hit his head on the turf. They took him out for precautionary reasons, possible concussion there. He's come back from that and playing huge right now for Yucaipa.
Yeah, he missed the second game against Highland, but then he came back against Vista Murrieta, had over 100 yards there. But against San G, 8 catches, 318 yards, set a school record. It wasn't enough for Yucaipa to win, but, just an impressive performance. 3rd best receiving total in inland area history. The record is held by Riverside Ramona's Chris Camacho, who had 338 yards in a 2003 game against Bloomington. San Bernardino County record is held by Skylar Moore of Montclair, who had 335 yards that same season as Camacho, 2003. But yeah, Brandon Scott, we know right now he's that guy. He plays receiver for Yucaipa, will be a tight end probably at the next level. So he is a definite matchup problems for a lot of the top cornerbacks in the area.
All right, moving on to Centennial. The Huskies do not lose very often. In fact, the last time they lost back-to-back games in the regular season, it was 2003. Finding Nemo was #1 in the movies, your favorite movie, and your favorite song, 50 Cent Up in the Club, was also #1. But it doesn't happen very often at Centennial.
Yeah, it's happened only 5 times since 2000. As you said, 3 times have been a crossover season where they've lost their last postseason game and then their season opener. But the last time they lost 2 back-to-back games, same season, 2003, like you said, when they lost to Clovis West, and then they lost the following week to San Clemente. So, they play Carson this week. I got to think they're the favorites there. But, just throwing it out there, last time that Centennial's lost 3 in a row, you'd have to go back to 1998, I believe.
Why are you throwing that out there?
Matt Logan's second season. So just out there. But I do think Centennial should be pretty solid against Carson this week. I think it's the back-to-back losses are getting under the skin of some of the Centennial players. They want to go out and prove they're still among the top teams.
I say the Huskies come out angry against Carson. All right, volleyball. And, of course, it's football season, but we also want to talk a little bit of volleyball. And assists, not just for basketball players. They have them in volleyball as well, and a huge game for Beaumont's Bailey Crenshaw.
Yeah, it was first of all, it was kind of a big match and big victory for them. Valley View, one of the top teams in the Inland Valley Division, and Beaumont went out there and was able to get a 5-set victory in that game. So definite showing that they could be maybe a playoff contender in the Mountain Pass League, and maybe even put up a good match against Hemet. But Bailey Crenshaw, 54 assists right now, I believe is only one of about probably about a handful, maybe 10 players who have 12 players who have ever had 54 or more assists in a match. So that's definitely a great performance by her. She's kind of leading that offense out there. The record in the area is 62 assists. Alyssa Quam of Hemet, her father, the late Dan Quam, led that program for many years, and so that is still the benchmark. Hard to get that many assists in a game. You pretty much have to go 5 sets to do that.
And all these assists from Bailey Crenshaw Beaumont got EPJ thinking. The most assists by a setter in one season in the inland area. That's your next question, right?
Yeah, that is a record that had stood for a while and in recent years has been broken. But the record for assists in a single season, 1,199 assists. So definitely someone, you had to think of a team that went pretty far in the playoffs, had a lot of matches under their belt, may have played a lot of tough teams for 4- and 5-set matches. About 1,199 assists.
All right, so for folks like me that need the help, any hints, anything that you can maybe throw out there?
You don't have to go too far.
From the Press Enterprise in Riverside? All right, well, you'll have to find out next week, next Tuesday, for another edition of By the Numbers. For EPJ, I'm Pep Fernandez. We'll see you again next Tuesday.